The body and the weight it carries in art. The political power of the human body. Barbara Kruger, Carolee Schneemann, and Robert Mapplethorpe all explore the power the human body holds in our society in their respective mediums. Carolee seeks to take apart what it means to be a female performance artist. She asks, what does it mean to be the creator as well as the creation? Barbara uses similar compositions to advertisements, drawing attention to the idea of the body being commodifiable. Robert's photography depicts the male nude in a way that highlights innate beauty juxtaposed against harsh scenes and lighting. Here is a work of Barbara Kruger's. This is a still from a performance art piece by Carolee Schneemann. This is a photograph done by Robert Mapplethorpe. Main themes of all three artists' works: feminism, dismantling stereotypes, consumerism, the male gaze, and power imbalances. All three really, I think one of the more central themes is definitely the male gaze, because Barbara and Carolee, both of their work really brings a feminist lens to it, and kind of dissects like what it is about women's bodies that is just so easily objectifiable. Like anything that women can do can be a fetish for men, basically. That's a lot of the work that Carolee Schneemann does specifically, I think. And then Robert Mapplethorpe turns that on its head almost, and explores like the male gaze through a queer perspective. Which is like, it's just, it all is kind of the same thing, but Robert Mapplethorpe really like turns it on its head almost and looks at it from a very different point of view. Dismantling stereotypes, I think that mostly speaks to Robert's work of like the leather photography of his specifically, because it kind of exposes like a subculture that has been deemed as like the underbelly of society for the longest time. And then consumerism definitely speaks towards Barbara Kruger's pieces, just because they're meant to resemble advertisements. And like they have like short phrases the way that advertisements do. And then Carolee Schneemann, I think, in my opinion, highlights like the most feminist kind of aspects out of all of them, specifically because of her not adherence, I guess, but because of her use of like the female body in her artwork and like all of the different things that could mean. Like specifically, I have a quote from her in a later slide, but she talks about like being the creator as well as the creation, which I think is really interesting. All right, getting into Barbara Kruger. Here is a work, most of her work is untitled, but this one reads, "You construct intricate rituals which allow you to touch the skin of other men." This work of Kruger's is one of my personal favorites. A lot of her work touches on consumerism in America and the effects it has on feminism, but this print skips the middleman and goes straight to her intended audience. Here she is critiquing the rules that have been created by the patriarchy that are enforced on other men. She points out the hypocrisy in the traditional standards of manhood. It is not okay to touch other men affectionately, but it is to touch them violently. Her use of first-person pronouns makes it seem as if she were talking to you directly, and the high contrast image demands your attention. I mean, I feel like there's not much more to say about this one. I think that her use of the image, like the black and white image, and then juxtaposed against like the heavy contrasted words that are like set to like a background, like they jump out at you and you can't avoid them. And another work of Barbara Kruger's reads, "Super rich, ultra gorgeous, extra skinny, forever young." This piece displays the ridiculous and strenuous standards women are held to in modern society. Beauty is valued above everything else for women, and the rituals that are performed daily to achieve desirability are sometimes very extreme. The use of superlatives around the center image convey how hyperbolic many beauty rituals are. The ice cubes affixed to this woman's already done-up face show how even when participating in almost alien-like activities to maintain beauty, women are expected to look attractive. Yeah, I think that like the words specifically really stand out to me, just because, I mean, obviously, like the way that they're formatted is incredibly eye-catching. But yeah, like it's like all buzzwords that are meant to be like buzzwords that when strung together kind of read like almost frenzied in a way, because these are the standards that women are meant to achieve and want to achieve specifically. Moving on to Carolee Schneemann. This is Interior Scroll. It is a performance art piece. Interior Scroll is probably her most popular work and sets a good backdrop for the rest of her art. This quote of hers on this piece specifically captures the main themes of her work well. I thought of the vagina in many ways, physically, conceptually, as a sculptural form, an architectural referent, the source of sacred knowledge, ecstasy, birth passage, transformation. She purposely was nude in the performance to challenge the audience on their instinct to objectify her body as she is creating a piece of art. She was also covered in red paint to simulate menstrual blood, and I think that like this work really does like capture the body, I think, and how like the female body has been made to like the functions of it have been made to be viewed as like impure or dirty, and I'm thinking specifically of menstrual blood. But like in her description, like the vagina is an incredibly like, it's not a dirty thing at all. It's like that is where everyone comes from. That is the portal from not really being a human being into being a human being, like into an alive state, which is really interesting. And then a final work of Carolee Schneemann's, Fuses, a multimedia film. Fuses is a multimedia film Schneemann collaborated on with her boyfriend. Fuses is a disorienting and cacophonous critique of the exploitative nature of pornography. Schneemann filmed herself and her boyfriend having sex and placed images of her cat throughout the piece. It is difficult to decipher what exactly is going on because of her experimental approach of filming as well as processing the film. The film displays both Schneemann and her partner in the same light, not trying to take or give power away from either party as showing sex as an act of union and not a performance. Like I was saying earlier, I really do think that Carolee Schneemann's work is, I feel like her work really captures the theme of my presentation the best, because I think that this like really highlights how like women's bodies specifically are so heavily politicized, but and in their politicization, it is incredibly sexual and like power imbalancy in nature, which is not a good phrase. That's not good wording, whatever. But yeah, it's almost like anti-pornography, because it's definitely not visually pleasing, and pornography is meant to depict like the actors as like the most physically attractive you can possibly be, which is not the case here. Yeah. Moving on to Robert Mapplethorpe. He is one of my favorites. This is titled Brian Ridley and Lyle Keeter. Mapplethorpe gained controversy for choosing to depict the gay underground S&M subculture of the 1970s and 80s. This is one of his more tame pieces, but the subject matter is still incredibly striking. The gay male body was heavily politicized in a way male bodies hadn't really been before during the AIDS crisis of the 1980s. His work depicting these very intimate acts and relationships that were typically relegated to dark alleyways and nightclubs in such a clear light evokes a profound emotional response. Mapplethorpe's Leather series displays the body in all of its glory, in extremely vulnerable positions and contexts which have all been politicized. I think that his work really does speak to me specifically because I am also a queer man, but I really enjoy how like it strips the mysticism away almost. And I think that what you don't understand is what you fear. And I think that like conservative ideology is heavily reliant on that. And this is like, it strips away all of like the shrouds of darkness and confusion, and just like puts it on display of like, this is what's happening. These are two consenting parties. What are you gonna do about it, basically? And I think that like, it's an incredibly profound, or not profound, important and impactful choice to depict queer men in such like sincerity during this time, because like even like the things that we do that are like not like that fucked up are still seen as fucked up. And like this is an example of that. Like even though like it has like the layers of mysticism and darkness almost have been taken away from this act, this subculture, even though they're taken away, the act itself is still seen as kind of disgusting. Okay, so yeah. This is the final work. This photograph shows the male nude form with the same gentleness and care given to photos of the female nude form. In this piece, the subject is looking down and away from the camera with his legs open in a vulnerable, yet slightly guarded gesture. Poses like this are usually only taken by women in nude photographs. The feminine pose and energy of this photograph also draws light to the over-masculinization of Black bodies. Black men specifically have been stereotyped as being aggressive or dangerous and capable of vulnerability. This photograph challenges that stereotype and shows how Black men are just as able to be gentle and vulnerable as their white counterparts. And this is titled Bruce. Yeah, I mean, when I saw this image, it really reminded me of the paintings that we've analyzed in class before, and how almost all of the women are looking away in the photograph, and their bodies are very languid, like they're very like open, they're very, but open in a way that's like not like asking for it, so to say. Like open, but not open enough, or not too open. Yeah, and I think that like this pose would normally not be taken by a man, let alone a Black man at that. And I think that it's really beautiful, because it's just like it's a beautiful image, first of all, and it's a really beautiful sentiment that like everyone is capable of vulnerability and gentleness. It's just whether you decide they're allowed to be like that or not. Yeah. And that is it. Hope you enjoyed my vlog. All right. Bye.